Speaking of skies, eyes on the skies throughout this Friday. President Trump saying he's going to look into overtime pay for the once stranded astronauts, or he says he's going to take care of it himself.
Nobody's ever mentioned this to me. If I have to, I'll pay it out of my own pocket, okay? I'll get it for him.
The commander-in-chief also unveiling the military's newest fighter jet, the F-47, to potentially counteract China. That, by the way, is a big win for Boeing as well. It was more contentious, though, in court. A federal judge calling out the administration over its deportation flights. Lots of hearings, lots of deadlines this week. We're going to give you the latest. And tonight, a huge hire for those wondering what is in our skies. In moments, we'll explain why David Grush, the big UFO whistleblower, might soon be the latest government worker. But back on the ground, if that was the skies, here's the ground. Teslas torched. The president vowing tonight up to 20 years in prison, potentially, for those who are caught. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Happy Friday. And here is where we begin tonight. It's a sight you don't really see that often, if ever. The world's wealthiest man, Elon Musk, walking right into the Pentagon.
We welcomed him today to the Pentagon to talk about DOGE, to talk about efficiencies, to talk about innovations.
Which means tonight, there is a new dynamic, a Republican administration looking to trim down the Pentagon. NewsNation asking President Trump about what those job losses could look like. As we start tonight with our Kelly Meyer live at the White House. Kelly, we saw Musk at the Pentagon, Hegseth in the Oval. Lots of focus on DOGE and the military today.
Yeah, and it's interesting because right there, when you played that soundbite from Hegseth, he said they did talk about DOGE, but later the Department of Defense said they didn't talk about DOGE. But President Donald Trump said they are focused on budget cuts. Our Robert Sherman asking him about that in the Oval, and Trump telling him that we're making our country, quote, stronger. Take a listen to this.
Nobody's taking better care of the military. One of the things that I know that Pete's doing is he's talking about a lot of the civilian staff, and we're going to get them other jobs.
And President Trump shutting down that reporting that Elon Musk was at the Pentagon to be briefed on a potential war plan with China. He said he, quote, doesn't want anyone seeing those plans, and certainly not a businessman. He said that Musk has business in China and he would be, quote, susceptible to that. Blake?
Our Kelly Meyer live tonight, North Lawn of the White House. Speaking of the president, covering the news there for us. Kelly, thank you. Also, the president tonight raising the question of potentially sending Americans who vandalize Teslas to prisons in El Salvador.
When I looked at those showrooms burning and those cars, not one or two, like 7, 8, 10 burning, exploding all over the place, these are terrorists.
Our Nancy Liu joins us live from Los Angeles as 3 people are now being charged for targeting Teslas. Nancy?
Well, Blake, despite the new federal focus on what the Trump administration is calling domestic terrorism, Tesla incidents continue across the country. So in a new Truth Social post, President Trump said, I look forward to watching these 6 terrorist thugs get 20-year jail sentences for what they are doing to Elon Musk and Tesla. And there's kind of an awkward tension here in Southern California, where we have the nation's highest concentration of Teslas in a largely blue portion of the state. One Tesla owner found a handwritten note from her Los Angeles neighbor this week urging her to get rid of the car, claiming it sends a message of Nazi complicity. And there have been dozens of far more violent and damaging messages sent across the country in recent weeks. Continued incidents of torching, spray painting, and vandalism of cars, dealerships, and charging stations. In Chicago, Ring video captured a man placing stickers on Teslas parked along a residential street. An owner emerged to find an anti-Semitic message on the back of his car.
And I'm like, you're not going to believe this. Someone put like a swastika on our car. And then it had a sticker that said, Heil Elon.
And in a new crackdown, the Attorney General announced federal charges against 3 people who allegedly used Molotov cocktails to set fire to Teslas in Oregon, Colorado, and South Carolina. As noted by the president, convictions could mean up to 20 years behind bars. And due to targeted violence, Elon Musk has ordered ramped up security at all Tesla showrooms, plus display cars, Blake. They're going to have Sentry mode engaged to record video footage of any incidents and suspects. Blake?
All right. Our Nancy Liu, live for us in Southern California tonight. Nancy, thank you. Some flights at London's Heathrow Airport back open tonight, resuming after an electrical substation fire nearby forced its closure. That is the 4th busiest airport in the world, by the way. At least 1,300 flights to and from Heathrow were affected, including flights here to the U.S. The cause of the fire not known, but investigators in London say it does not appear to be suspicious. Tonight, President Trump is standing by the deportation flights of illegal immigrants to El Salvador.
We don't want them in our country. We can't let a judge say that he wants him. You know, he didn't run for president. He didn't get much more than 80 million votes. And we just can't let that happen. It'd be so bad for our country. I won on the basis.
Judge James Blasberg blasting the Trump administration's lawyers at the hearing today over the deportation flights. Our Libby Dean joins me live. You've been covering this throughout the day, all week. Libby, hello. There were multiple hearings, multiple deadlines. It's 6:06 on a Friday. Did anything happen?
Still no ruling.
Yeah.
That's what happened today. But this was the biggest development that we had today, this hearing in court that happened at 2:30. It lasted about an hour long. It was so tense and incredibly fiery between Judge Roseberg and then also with the Department of Justice attorneys. He basically was saying that they were being disrespectful. He kicked off the hearing by saying that they weren't cooperating, asking if they actually ever even listened to his original order to turn these flights around. That's kind of how this kicked off, essentially. And then you just heard President Trump there talking about who was on those flights, because that was the key part and the key question looming over this entire week, really, but specifically this hearing was, were these 261 people who were on these flights all alleged Trinidad members? Didn't necessarily get that answer, but that is what these plaintiffs are searching for the answer.
But the longer this drags out, I guess, it makes it a lengthier process for the Trump administration to do what they are trying to do.
And it could essentially go all the way to the Supreme Court. We saw President Trump say that he wants the Supreme Court to weigh in here on these judges who are ruling against the administration. And one of the most vocal judges thus far has been this D.C. judge who is overseeing these flights. But one thing that he really laid out during this hearing that stood out to me was actually the fact that he wanted to highlight that he wasn't necessarily saying he wanted these flights to be turned around so he could let these gang members back into the U.S. and off the flights. They could potentially be held here in the U.S., but nonetheless, they are in El Salvador after those deportation flights we saw last weekend.
Libby Dean covering the hearing. It'll happen again next week, I guess, or at least
there's
days.
no hearing set right now and no ruling, so it's just ongoing. Yeah.
Libby Dean, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Meantime, as the Trump administration begins to dismantle the Department of Education, the special needs and nutrition programs in U.S. schools tonight has a new manager. The Department of Health and Human Services, led by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., will now oversee it moving forward. The secretary posting today in part, quote, "We are committed to ensuring every American has access to the resources they need to thrive. We will make the most care of our vulnerable citizens our highest priority. Together," he says, "we will make America healthy again." Now, it comes one day after the president signed the executive order to eliminate the Department of Education. Tonight as well, a big development in the search for the truth about UFOs. It's been more than a year since the whistleblower, that guy right there, David Grush, sat down with NewsNation's Ross Coulthart and shared some big revelations.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do.
That interview caught the attention of Congress. Months later, Grush testified about his allegations. And now, NewsNation, the first to report today that Grush is expected to soon head right back to the Capitol. Our Joe Khalil was the one who broke the story today. Joe K in the Capitol hallways, you might have a new visitor there for the next 4 months or so. David Grush, explain why.
Yeah, this is very significant. So look, this is probably the world's most famous UAP UFO whistleblower. Right. Now you can throw congressional staffer on his resume. He's going to be working for Congressman Eric Burlison, a Republican who's been at the forefront of this. A very big deal. Burlison had been trying for some time to get Grush to work with him. Why this is important is because you've got a lot of activity over the last 2 years in this space. Right. You've had hearings, multiple, you've had private classified briefings. A lot of lawmakers say they don't know the right questions even to ask to move the ball forward on this topic. Right. So Grush is someone who can give him lines of inquiry, can say, these are the threads to pull.
Why does he need to be an employee for that, though?
So he technically can do this in a certain capacity, right? But when you're talking about getting people into a classified space or a setting, that's something that you need to have either clearance for or that you need to be on staff in some way. And I've actually heard that they may try to increase his clearance now that he is a congressional staffer. That also is an important element of this, and something that, he has had things that he has claimed, Grush has claimed he cannot say publicly. If his clearance is higher, it's possible, he says, he might be able to disclose certain things. So all of that is something we're going to be watching.
And I think it's important to note here, Eric Burlison isn't just like some random congressman who says, oh, that's kind of interesting, let's see if I can get him to work for me. He's one of the original, along with Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, Jared Moskowitz, who have been asking a lot of questions here.
On the Oversight Committee, on the UAP caucus, so he's been very much at the center of this. And it was his idea, actually, to bring Grush on to his staff.
By the way, I mentioned Congressman Tim Burchett later on the show. Joe K, thank you. You're going to want to stick around for this one because we're talking to the man at the center of the UFO investigation, Congressman Tim Burchett, who started the UAP caucus. Joins us here on the Hill why the big whistleblower who blew this story wide open could soon be one of his colleagues. And what does it mean? What does the congressman think about all this? I'm going to ask him. By the way, is Pete Hegseth helping? I'll ask him that too. Plus, the next generation, a new fighter jet just announced. What it means for U.S. defense and why Elon Musk says, you know what? We don't need manned fighter jets. We need drones. Who's right here? And why is a PAC backed by Musk offering to pay voters in Wisconsin $100? That's coming up here on the Hill. Welcome to Washington. I'm Blake Berman. This is the Center of Politics. We are back here in 4 minutes. I'll see you on the other side. Oh, did you see that? Old school music, new age technology, though. Just part of the announcement today of the military's new fighter jet. The Pentagon awarding Boeing a $20 billion contract to manufacture and engineer the world's first sixth-generation fighter jet. It will be known as the F-47.
It's a technology that's new, but it doesn't fly by itself. It flies with many drones, as many as we want, and that's something that no other plane can do.
Announced today by the 47th president. It will replace Lockheed Martin's F-22 Raptor jet, which entered service nearly 20 years ago. The Air Force says it will cost less, be more technologically advanced. It's also viewed as essential to keep up with China. Joining me now is the retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert, who flew in 38 different aircraft, including that F-22 I just mentioned. John, Brigadier General, thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill. Appreciate it. So this thing is $300 million a piece. It looks like we're probably going to get it in the next handful of years or so. Technology always advances, right? What's so good about this?
The promise of this F-47 is that it will be a generational leap of capability, even ahead of that amazing F-22 Raptor.
How? Tell me how.
And that includes more lethality, more speed, more range, additional weapons, and we're looking forward to seeing this with the fleet of aircraft the president promised to be delivered before the end of his term.
Do we have a sense, though, of what it could do versus what we can't do now?
I think it's really a leap of all of the good attributes of something like an F-22 in a more demanding and challenging area. You look at the Western Pacific and the area around Taiwan as an example, an extremely dense set of threats that now we need a leap of technology to be able to overcome. And the promise is that the F-47 will give us that in the next 3 or 4 years.
So is this just a direct response to China? I guess one way to look at it is, we need to keep up our technology. The other way you could look at it is we need to keep up with China. What is it?
Blake, this is something that's been on the drawing board for about a decade. And in fact, the president revealed today that we've been flying a prototype of this aircraft for the last 5 years. That means that we are trying to stay well ahead of any potential threat, whether it's China or someone else. And we are looking at our requirements in order to have the lethality anywhere on the globe and air dominance that we need. And this is not following China. This is setting a pace that China can't keep up with.
As I look at it, it's kind of a wild image to look at. Is that actually what it's going to look like?
Like, I don't know if we know. Obviously, we see that nose sticking
we'll see
out
what
of the
happens,
hangar.
right?
We're not sure. And the thing that the president promised about this aircraft is that it would be the F-47, which would be a manned part of this platform, but it would then be incorporated into a family of systems of CCAs, or collaborative combat aircraft, which are autonomous drones that would be its wingmen, that would add to the lethality of the single man platform that you may or may not see peeking out of a hangar there in those pictures.
So you bring up how it's manned, meaning that there's going to be a pilot or pilots in it. Elon Musk, and let's show the post real quick. Elon Musk has been saying recently, you know what? In this age of drones, crewed fighter jets, he says, are an inefficient way to extend the range of missiles or drop bombs. A reusable drone can do so without all the overhead of a human pilot. And then he went on to say, meanwhile, some idiots are still building manned fighter jets like the F-35. I heard Pete Hegseth say today, Brigadier General, that this is a gift for our kids, a gift for our grandkids. Who's right here, Hegseth or Musk?
Blake, I appreciate that Elon Musk is pitching into our national defense here, but the combination of the manned aircraft that is like the quarterback of the team that incorporates these unmanned aircraft gets the best of both worlds.
So you say we need both is basically right, is basically what you're saying.
Hegseth absolutely is right here as we balance the benefits of manned and unmanned in this teaming that is centered around an F-47.
Would you want to fly the thing? You've flown 30
Put me in, Coach. I used to fly F-22s. I used to command Edwards Air Force Base, which is where they're going to test this thing. Give me a flight suit, and I'll take on anyone in the world.
Man, I would love to do it. I could only imagine. Brigadier General retired John Teichert, thanks for being with us tonight. Fascinating to hear your perspective. Come on back here on the Hill. Appreciate it, of course. All right, still much more ahead here on the Hill. The power of the auto pen. You know, President Trump has been making the presidential signing tool a household name in the recent days. He wants to know, how much did Joe Biden use the thing? But now the auto pen could be erased for good. I'll explain why. Plus, Congress not giving up on the search for truth in the skies. There is a big development tonight as it relates to UFOs. David Grush headed to Capitol Hill, not necessarily as a witness, but now working for a member of Congress. And on the other side of the break, I want you to hear from the man who's been leading this push as much as anyone. He's Congressman Tim Burchett. He's going to tell me why it matters when we return. Welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. Penning goodbye to the auto pen. A Musk-backed group hands out some cash. Danton Donald goes viral. And have you heard about the space pay gap? Our Hannah Brandt with what's happening on the Hill and more. Hello, Hannah. Happy Friday.
Hi, Blake. Yes, happy Friday. Ready for the weekend. Yep. Congress is back, though, and they could be taking action on the auto pen controversy. Remember how President Trump said Biden's pardons were voided due to alleged use of the auto pen? Well, Republican Congressman Buddy Carter of Georgia introduced a bill called the SIGN Act to require presidents to personally sign any pardon, no automated signatures. Now to Wisconsin, where a heated battle for control of the state's Supreme Court is underway. Elon Musk's Political Action Committee America PAC is offering $100 to each eligible Wisconsin voter who signs a petition against so-called activist judges. Early voting has already started, and the winner will determine whether the court stays liberal or flips conservative. Plus, a light show in Miami. Mayor Francis Suarez sharing this video of a drone featuring President Trump's staple dance move to YMCA. Other messages like a new golden age for America and world's best deal maker were also on display. And a new space controversy just a few days after stranded NASA astronauts landed back here on Earth. A NASA spokesperson says those astronauts won't be getting overtime pay, even though they were stuck in space for over 9 months. Astronauts do receive incidental pay of $5 for each day they spend in space. So that means they'll be getting a little over $1,400 each. Here's what President Trump said about it all.
Nobody's ever mentioned this to me. If I have to, I'll pay it out of my own pocket, okay? I'll get it for her.
And that's what's happening on the Hill, Blake.
It used to be $4 and inflation took it to $5. No, I'm joking. How do you calculate overtime, though?
I don't know, because is it 24 hours a day? They're there all the time.
I think a reasonable person would say, you know what, like, that's not base pay.
Yeah.
But how do you figure it out? I don't know.
Well, apparently NASA says you don't. No
right.
Overtime. Right. No math needed.
They're good at figuring out the numbers and all that stuff, but We'll see. All right, our Hannah Brandt. Hannah, thank you. Have a great weekend. Appreciate it. Meantime, by now you've probably heard a whole lot about DOJ and laid off federal employees, judges ordering them to be reinstated. But amid all the layoffs, the government still hiring for one area of focus: UFOs. Our Joe Khalil, the first to report that Congressman Eric Burleson is hiring the Air Force veteran and UFO whistleblower David Grush to help with the investigation into UAPs, otherwise known as unidentified aerial phenomena. Grush grabbed the attention of Congress with his sworn testimony a couple years ago.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General.
I have no doubt that this caught the attention of that man right there. He is the Republican from Tennessee. Congressman Tim Burchett also serves on the Oversight Committee with Eric Burleson, the one who is bringing Grush into the fold. Congressman, great to see you. Nice to talk to you. So, David,
you, brother.
Of course, David Grush, he's a quote-unquote senior advisor for 4 months, will advise on UAP interviews. You're one of the originals, right? You, Burleson, Anna Paulina Luna, other side of the aisle, Jared Moskowitz. So tell me, what, if anything, does this mean that Grush is now headed in as a government worker, I guess?
Well, he's actually, I think he's hired under Eric Burleson's office. We're allowed a certain amount we have a budget that we have to we rent space, we buy supplies, we do things like that, and employees. Right. So what I understand is that he would actually just be falling in under Eric's budget. So it's nothing nefarious, nothing sneaky, but it brings him in so that we can question him further. And at some point, though, we need to get to the bottom of everything that he said. And that's sort of, we've been given they just keep dodging us every time. They weave, we bob, they bob, we weave. It's the same old game. And all I want to know is,
what do you mean you can question him further? What does this senior advisor role mean you could essentially get more information out of him? How?
I think he can help us ask questions that need to be asked, that should be asked, that maybe we're not asking the right questions because we're not supposed experts on this. I think the bottom line is, though, what are we spending tens of millions of dollars on that our government tells us at one point tells us they do not exist, yet we have former CIA folks that are telling us that they do exist, that they've diagnosed bodies, they've analyzed craft, things like that. And then we have one group telling us they do. We have former admiral telling us they exist. But our government says they don't. Look, it's not the government's job to decide what we can handle or what we think we should know. They need to turn it over. It's our money they're spending, tens of millions of dollars on this subject, and then they turn around and tell us they don't exist. But when we ask for the reports, they're all look like they've been hit with a 12-gauge shotgun. They're not complete, and everything's left out.
I asked you, I cut you off there when you said the one thing you want to know is, can you finish that thought?
I want to know what they're spending the money on.
Speaking of the money, over at the Pentagon, and this is a look, by the way, of President Trump moments ago as he's about to head out for the weekend. Speaking of the money, over at the Pentagon, sir, which is where your part of your focus has been, there's a new boss there. It's Pete Hegseth. Have you talked to him about all of this? Has he been helpful?
I have, and I wasn't going to vote for the bill, but he assured me that is something they're going to be looking at. And I want to make sure people understand all this money we're going to save with Doge if the Congress ever gets the guts to codify any of these bills instead of letting Trump carry it on.
No. I mean, has Hegseth been helpful on the UAP front?
Oh,
because the Pentagon has a say in.
I thought you were talking budgetary items. Yeah, no, he hasn't. But he's been very I didn't even ask him about it actually, but I will because when it comes around to that time to do that. Yeah, I mean, he's been very forthcoming about spending and wasteful spending, and I will guarantee that he would be one of those. President Trump has indicated to us that he wants to get to the bottom of it as well. So he works for President Trump. So I would assume that would carry over very fast.
So then if the Pentagon has the office, that Arrow office that's involved with all this, and Doge comes in and starts looking at what's what happens then, Congressman?
Of course, if it's classified, not a whole lot. That's part of the problem. And they denied Congress access to that. They denied myself access to stuff. And then they've come back around and sort of shown us stuff. It's over. This thing is over. They need to disclose everything and do it now. America needs to know. We need to demand that of our elected officials. Quit joking around about little green men and flying saucers. We're spending tens of millions of dollars on something. Dadgummit, we deserve to know. Give us the information.
That, of course, by the way, Elon Musk traveling with the president. Let me leave you with this. Now that David Grush is going to be a senior advisor to your colleague, Eric Burlison, the one question that you would ask him when you see him in the halls of Congress or wherever you might see him up on the Hill, what are you going to ask him?
How's he doing? We talk pretty regular.
beyond that.
I think I know what he knows.
Okay.
He doesn't have to tell me. I've been around enough. I know what's going on. And for the record, I am not suicidal. So if y'all find me tomorrow with 10 bullet holes in the back of my head, I did not kill myself. Right. Y'all keep the pressure. Y'all the ones that started the pressure with the major media. And please keep it up because we're going to get to the bottom of it.
We will. And all the best, sir. We'll leave it there. Have a great weekend. Tim Burchett.
Thank you, brother.
Tennessee. Talk to you soon. You got it. All right. Still to come here on the Hill. They're enraged. And they want Democrats to step it up.
We want you to show some of the backbone and strategic brilliance that Mitch McConnell would have in the minority.
Voters sounding off on party leaders for failing to resist Trump in their view. So what needs to happen? Our Kurt Bardella has an interesting position on Stephen A. Smith. We're going to get into it on the other side of the break. And a royal invite, King Charles reportedly set to make Trump a certain offer. That's when the Hill returns.
The 22nd Amendment says it, okay? It explicitly states in the Constitution that for the presidency, there will be a 2-term limit. No person shall serve more than 2 terms. They know this. Now, these are the same people that spent decades upon decades telling us the Constitution, the Constitution, the Constitution.
All right. That, of course, Stephen A. Smith on Cuomo this week, opining about a potential 3rd term for President Trump. Our NewsNation contributor, Kurt Bardella, you know him. You've seen him on the show here all the time. Now, he's been very vocal about the role that the ESPN personality could play in the Democratic Party going forward, talking 2028, for example. Kurt recently wrote that Democrats should not ignore Stephen A. Smith. Now, Kurt caught so much flack, he says, from Democrats, from the left, that he felt the need to then write another article and defend his stance. Here's what Bardella said, quote, Smith offers a masterclass in storytelling, debating, reporting, and entertainment. He effortlessly blends charisma, passion, knowledge, controversy, humor, and emotion to provoke conversation and debate. To me, that sounds like a recipe the Democrats could use right now. Look who we have here. Kurt Bardella, Democratic strategist, NewsNation contributor in the friendly confines of his living room. T.W. Riggi, former communications aide for Senator Lindsey Graham. Aaron McGuire, Republican strategist. And Dan Cannonen, former Battleground States director for the Biden and Harris campaigns. Hello to you all. We get to do this in person. Kurt, virtually.
Yeah, Kurt couldn't be bothered to show up today. Said not be.
Bardella, so you wrote this piece basically saying, like, take Stephen A. seriously. And you said you got so much grief, you felt the need to write it again. What happened, and why do you think we should be paying attention to him?
So there's been a lot of conversation about Stephen A. Smith and kind of almost jokingly talking about running for president in 2028. Stephen A's been out there making some very pointed observations and criticisms about the Democratic Party, their lack of messaging, their lack of a strategy, and he's 100% right. And that's what I want Democrats to understand. I'm not saying Stephen A. is going to run for president or be the Democratic nominee, but when someone who is as versed at storytelling and communications and provoking controversy and debate and messaging, when someone is that talented, is talking about what you're doing wrong, you should listen to him. Don't mock him. Don't make fun of him. Don't ignore him, because he is more right than Democrats realize. And then when I wrote that, Blake, a lot of folks on social media, a lot of Democrat, quote, progressives, they ran me down. They're, oh, it's the former Republican emerging. Oh, he's gone full Trump. Oh, we shouldn't listen to anything he has to say. And so the other day I wrote a Substack responding to them saying, listen, it's people like that make me want to stop being a Democrat. Because if your answer to someone who is pointing out obvious problems and shortcomings in your strategy and approach, if your answer is run him out of the party, we shouldn't listen to him, you have zero chance of ever successfully winning an election ever again.
So you just ran the battleground states in the past election. You know a thing or two about this. What would you say to Kurt?
I think Kurt's right.
How so?
Well, look, Stephen A. Smith and folks like him who can tell stories and connect with people and explore ideas and don't just, talk to voters or talk to an audience with a single message and talking point, come across as authentic, trustworthy, they're engaging. It's how you actually reach people. And I think the problem the Democrats have is we've had this very conventional approach to politics. This was Hillary Clinton. This is, to some extent, how we ran the Harris campaign, which is to not make a mistake, to go on air and don't screw up. And in this environment, when volume and content is king, you got to be willing to be authentic and talk and be out there. And it's not just a one campaign or one candidate problem. It's across the ecosystem. We need to get better at doing this stuff. Josh Shapiro, I think, was on Stephen A. Smith's show recently and was excellent at being someone just in the moment, flowing and having a good time.
So you walked me right into Josh Shapiro, because here's a post that he's the governor of Pennsylvania, who's viewed as a rising star Democrat within the party. He said, we took a hard look at our permitting process, licensing and certification process. We slashed red tape, clearly unnecessary backlogs, and fixed systems that hadn't been looked at in years. Now it takes 3 days to get a business license instead of 8 weeks, and we're processing permits faster than ever before. And I'm going, wait a minute, is that a Democrat or a Republican talking? Because if I didn't say Shapiro, the Democrat from Pennsylvania, you might say that's a Republican with that message. And then on the other side of the spectrum, here's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman, and Bernie Sanders last night racking up thousands in attendance in Arizona. Watch.
We need to be honest about where we are, because we are witnessing an oligarchy in America.
They are like heroin addicts. They need more and more and more. And if they destroy Social Security and Medicaid to get what they want, that is what they will do.
So I hear them talking about messaging, but that seems like a pretty wide gap there of messaging on policy, right, from the Democratic Party right now.
Yeah, and I, with all due respect to my good friend Kurt here, it's the Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? Democrats want to sit here and say, oh, it's a messaging problem. We're just not being bombastic enough. We just need somebody who's enthusiastic enough like Stephen A. Smith to really sell this. But what are you selling? I still don't have a message. The only people out there driving a message right now for Democrats on policy are AOC and Bernie Sanders. And right now, yeah, you might have Josh Shapiro talking about, oh, we're getting rid of the red tape right now. But come election day, what have you done for me lately? Because Democrats continue to try and say, oh, no, it's the messenger, not the message. Hello, Democrats, it's both. Wake up. But hey, let them have their own party. I'm just here to watch.
Yeah, you're exactly right. To have a message, you need to have policy.
I'll get you back in here, Martella. I'm going to get Cannon in.
Hang tight there, Kurt. Hang tight. In order to have a message, you need to have an identity, and the Democrats do not have an identity. You have people like Rahm Emanuel going out and say, talk less about bathrooms, talk more about classrooms. You have AOC and Bernie pushing a different message. But the problem is that Donald Trump has their heads in a tizzy. The Democratic Party I used to know and Bernie Sanders used to represent was anti-NAFTA, was anti-war, had all these different policy positions that Donald Trump has cut very deeply into. And meanwhile, you take the lessons learned from the last election cycle, and the Democrats have not been able to wrap their brains around what the American people were telling them.
I'm going to get to your side of the aisle in a second, but I'll let you and Kurt respond.
Well, first, I don't think that the gulf you're talking about between a government that's functional and works and delivers and cuts red tape and protecting Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security is that wide a gulf. Those are positions that most of America would agree with. Government should be more efficient.
But that's not what Democrats are talking about.
Look, I'll be critical of my own party here. I think if you want to be the side of institutions and government and you want to believe in government, then you should be the biggest critics of government when it fails to work. And permanent reform should absolutely happen. Josh Shapiro should lead that. By the way, when there was that whole I-95 problem in his state, they fixed that really fast. They cut through all the red tape. That's where Democrats can be. Deliver on that stuff, protect Medicare and Social Security. That's a winning message and policy.
Kurt?
You know, Aaron's partially right.
Got him.
I know. That's my wedding gift to you right there. But I think with Democrats, it's not necessarily about what you say, it's how you say it right now. What we're hearing from voters, from Democratic primary voters, is they feel like there's not enough fight within the Democratic Party right now to successfully go up against Trump and Musk and MAGA. And I think that they're 100% right. So I think style right now, frankly, matters a lot more than substance. Democrats are looking for someone that can lead them out of this, but that takes spirit, fight, personality, charisma, the ability to communicate and to connect. You might feel differently, Aaron, that substance is the way.
I'll let you real quick,
and then I want to big departure from what Republicans have done, but that's just the vantage point I have as someone who's here with the real people in Dallas, Texas, not you DC insiders on set.
Oh, I know you're such a man salt of the earth here. But let's remember, as Democrats want to sit here and talk about whether or not they're putting up enough of a fight and that Democrat primary voters need to put up more of a fight, Democrats are looking at their lowest approval ratings as a party. So maybe the problem is you're not putting up a big enough of a fight. The problem is the fight you're putting up, and Democrats can't take the glasses off to see the difference.
You can't believe the polls.
I know, I'm sorry, I got you there.
Let's go, hold on. So let's go to one of those issues. Over at the Pentagon, I saw Elon Musk walk in today, Pete Hegseth talking about Doge, and I'm going, wait a minute, your party wants to pull back at the Pentagon? Your party wants to pull back from the military? What's going on? That's a change.
I actually don't think it's a change at all.
Come on,
I don't think it's a change.
For a while.
No. Of course, defense spending is always something we need more money. We need to build more ships. We need to build more planes. We need to build more drones. But no one has ever said, who's served in the military, who's been around the military, would ever say there isn't rampant waste in the military. And by the way, I will say the biggest challenge for Doge has been information going out and information going in. They've failed, I think, in fully explaining the cuts that they're making, and they haven't been getting a lot of intel on the front end.
So hold on, you're saying...
So I'm glad he's going and talking.
You're saying it's the messaging. She just crushed you on.
No, hold on a second. No, it's information. So so Elon Musk visiting the Pentagon today, I see as a really good thing, so he can get his arms around where the areas that they think there are waste, where the areas that you shouldn't cut, you shouldn't touch. I have friends who've been dealing with this. Information in and information out to better inform decisions.
Since when have we watched Democrats chain themselves around the DOD and the Pentagon to stop people from going in to cut any spending at the Department of Defense? Democrats have been going after that for years to want to cut that spending, and now the Republicans are like, let's find ways. They're like, whoa, don't touch the sacred institution.
No one is saying that. I would say, though, there's $38 billion of contracts Elon Musk's companies he could start to look at if he's really serious, but I want to know if that's why he was really there, Blake. There was more interest in China and the Indo-Pacific Command briefing than his actual
there was reporting that he was there for that. The White House really pushed back hard.
The truth is out there
today. The truth is out there. Bardella says, "Got to leave it there." Thank y'all. Appreciate it on a spirited Friday. Still to come here on the Hill. Thanks, Kurt. Fires, Molotov cocktails, and gunfires. We've reported Tesla under attack from Musk critics, but is a bigger threat looming, or another threat looming at least? My take. On the other side of the break, I'll explain. And coming up right after the Hill, Elizabeth Vargas reports she's looking into the rise of drone warfare. That's coming up 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 minutes from now, right here on News Nation. We're back in a few. All right, my take now before we head out for the weekend. Amidst protests against Tesla, fires set to vehicles, and damaged facilities, Elon Musk held a town hall at his top company and made it public. President Trump's new right-hand man acknowledging some of the vitriol toward Tesla as he digs deeper into Doge and presidential politics.
If you read the news, it feels like, Armageddon. So I was like, I can't walk past the TV without seeing a Tesla on fire. What's going on? Some people, it's like, listen, I understand if you don't want to buy our product, but you don't have to burn it down.
But Musk also painted a picture of a brighter and futuristic world. AI robots, fully autonomous vehicles, self-driving robot taxis. Just some of the innovations Musk says are coming. Now, that very well could be true. But we got another reminder this week of the now. Let me take you to China. 2 headlines from there just this week alone. The electric car company BYD now claims its latest charging system gives its vehicle full charge for 250 miles in all of 5 minutes. Another Chinese EV company, Zeekr, announced it developed full self-drive technology, and they are offering it for free. So as Tesla now turns into a political football here in the U.S., a reminder that halfway around the world, China's automakers are coming after one of America's biggest companies purely at a business level. The U.S. car companies know this. You should as well. And that's my take. I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for watching us here on The Hill. I'm Blake Berman. See you Monday.